Hi, Joe Glavin here at City Floor Supply, and today we're going to talk about Bona's power drive system and then their new wire brush adapter kit for it. So just so you know, Tony's with me from Bona Chemi. He's come up in his Bona contractor / service van, and it's a great resource for you guys to take advantage of. And essentially what we're going to do is we are going to talk about power drive and its capabilities, particularly with this new wire brush system. So we'll walk over to the shop where we're going to do the demonstration. So I'll have Tony go over essentially is the power drive unit and the difference between it and their FlexiSand unit. And then we'll discuss a little bit of the vacuum. We'll certainly be discussing the wire brush kit and then the FlexiSand disc itself with some of the Tampico brush, or what is that brush?
Tampico.
The Tampico brush. So without further ado.
Ed says hello.
Who?
Ed says hello.
Ed from?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I believe his last name is Lausch.
Hello, Ed. So in our shop, what we have is, and what we're going to sand, is red and white oak mix, and it's really just kind of some of the leftover stuff that we have. This is where we test all of our equipment once it's repaired, and it's a great spot to demo something like this. The new wire brush system from Bona. Tony.
This is the Bona power drive, and it looks a lot like the Bona 110 FlexiSand, and it is based off of that with the types and features that you get with it. You get the big wheels, you got the light, you got the shock with the handle that you can adjust very easily, the dust containment, and the skirt, just like the 110. The difference here is this is actually a 220 machine, so it's powered off of 220 volts, and it also has a gear system on the bottom that you can see that this is where the plate gets driven, and that plate, Joe, do you mind grabbing that plate? We can show them. So here's the plate that actually the power drive plate that actually goes onto this system. As you can see, these gears, once it's put in place, lock into or get turned by this gear. So this was what spins the mechanism, and each plate here is being driven, force driven by this gear system.
So just to add what he's saying, whenever we go from something that's power driven here, and this gearbox in and of itself is a reduction box. So we've got a motor that's spinning at a certain RPM, and then this gearbox here in the buffer is going to reduce that RPM. But anytime that we do that, we're adding power and torque. It's kind of like, bringing your car into first and second gear. You get a lot of power and drive out of that. We're bringing your four-wheel drive out of high to four-wheel low. Same concept here. We're doing that with each one of these discs by making it part of the gear system. Sorry, dude.
That's all right. Thank you. So we're going to just lock this into place. You're going to have to kind of turn it until you get these to the lock, and there's a pin that you're going to drop inside here to just for added safety, just in case it tries to work itself loose. It'll get hung up on that pin and won't fly off. I'm going to go into this. This is the actual drive pad that comes on the power drive. I actually put these wire brush pucks on here already, and these pucks are just basically Velcroed on here, but it's a very strong Velcro. So in the process of putting these on, you just put them on just like a piece of sandpaper. But when you're done, getting these off can be very tricky, especially after it's driven and the force has been on it for a while. The key is just to take a knife like this, a putty knife or a all-in-one tool, and kind of just break that Velcro bond and just kind of peel it right off. Now the kit that we're going to show you here in a little bit actually has some gloves that come in the kit so you can wear, so you don't, because these things are pretty sharp and they can be discomforting. Also has one of these tools in it too. Go ahead and talk about that.
So this is the wire brush kit, and this is exactly how it comes. And you can actually order this on the website, cityfloorsupply.com, and you'll see this broken down. Let's open it up.
I have a question from Ed, guys. He's asking, can
Okay.
this machine also be used for screening in between coats?
Yes, it can be. It does come, the power drive does come with a regular buffing plate that can be put on, and you would just use it as a regular buffer. Now, the power drive, the revolutions per minute is a little bit slower than you would with a regular buffer. I believe it's 150, 75.
Yep.
So this one's about 150. So just keep that in mind. It's a heavier machine, about 10 pounds heavier. So what I like to do is, if I try to soften it up a little bit, instead of using maybe one maroon pad, you would use two.
Yeah, you want to be careful that you don't bite through the stain or into the stain through the finish. So, because it's a heavy unit.
Do you want me to go into a little
Yeah,
detail?
absolutely.
So
Yeah, we'll pick it apart.
What comes in the kit is this dust shroud that actually goes onto.
I get it.
Okay. It goes onto a polisher, and the polisher, we had this designed to fit the polisher. It's a DeWalt DWP 849X is the actual model number of this polisher. And what we have is this shroud that will be screwed onto the polisher. It also comes with this base plate, or the Velcro plate that you would use, that it would screw on here, and then you would put your puck on here. This puck does remove the same way I kind of showed you with the power drive. Also with the kit, you're going to get 4 more pucks for the power drive. You have the gloves for protection to take it on and off. Your all-in-one tool to get the pucks off. You have a wire brush by hand that you can use for the corners. You're going to need that. The polisher is used for the edges. And what's real nice, and you'll see when we start using it, is the polisher has these little wheels that can ride up against the baseboard or the wall for easy use. Also, which piece that I really like is this new dust shroud that we have for the power drive. Because this takes the plate pretty high off the ground, we extended the dust shroud for the power drive, so it'll actually have really good dust pickup. If you were to use the one that comes with it, it's going to fall short and expose it. It also does come with this manual that will give you some detailed instructions on the procedure on how to go about putting in the shroud on for the polisher. Also talks about your sequence as far as how to go about doing the wire brush process, which we will show you today. This piece here is a really nice piece. It actually shows that you would sand the floor up to a 50. I'm sorry, you could start with a 50 grit on the big machine or power drive. We recommend our green abrasive for that. Then with the edger, you would go to a 50. Then you would do an 80 for all the edges, 50 green, then an 80 blue. You would finish off with an 80 grit on the power drive, and then you would do all your edges with the polisher and the hand tool, and then you will go about using the power drive with the brushes to do the field as far as wire brushing is concerned. An important step with this is when you're done doing the wire brushing, we recommend you go back with fine sanding with the multi-disc, either with the 120 black or the 120 diamond discs. And the reason behind that is you kind of want to blend everything in. That does a nice job blending and taking some of the finer scratches from the wire brush out of the floor, and get you ready for staining or using our craft oil system.
So we've already sanded the floor and prepped beforehand to be able to just go right to the wire brush step. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to stain the floor. So everything that you saw on those steps, we're going to do here, including the flexi sanding on top to kind of highlight the wire brushing. And I guess real quick we'll go over the vacuum and then we'll get into it.
Great.
All right.
Now, when I run this system, I like to use a vacuum because you'll notice I like to use, there's two ways you can do it. You can actually dry run it with the wire brushes, or you can use water to like water pop, literally water pop as you go over the area. And using the water is really nice because it keeps these stainless steel brushes cool so they don't get too hot. And if they get too hot, they'll kind of drop out on you and fall out. So, and the longevity, you'll get a lot longer use. These go about 5,000 to 7,000 square feet roughly is the life on these brushes. And by using the water popping method, not only does it help you get a better wire brush look, but it actually helps with the longevity of the brushes.
And like what Tony was saying, when we're adding water to the floor, we want to make sure, because we're using that as a tool to make this tool work better. So at any time we're introducing water to the floor, before we stain or do any kind of finishing project to the floor afterwards, we want to just measure the moisture. So you want to use a moisture meter before you water and after you water so that you know the floor is back to where it was when you started.
I brought the 2.0 vac PDC, we call it portable dust containment, the 2.0 today to help me with the dust collection on this. As you'll know, as you'll see, the dust becomes very heavy because it does come saturated, so you need a lot of lift to it. So this machine does a nice job. It's got 2 HEPA filters, 2 motors. It has a Longo pack, which is a continuous pack, so you actually, when you have to take the bag out because it's full, you're not entering dust into the homeowner's house. It actually continues, the bag continues to come out. You can twist it and cut it without exposing all the dust into the air. Has a cone filter on top, cyclone type, goes into the second HEPA filter, so you got clean air coming out. This should be running on a 20 amp breaker because of the amperage on it. And let's go ahead and get started with the process. We recommend that you start the perimeter with the wire brush, with the polisher, and doing all the corners with the hand tool that we have. We're going to go ahead and run this machine with this polisher to show you what it's going to look like when you're wire brushing. One thing about this polisher, we recommend has several settings as far as revolutions per minute or RPMs. We like to go on between 800 to 1200 is what we like the settings on. Anything higher than that, you're really going to dig into the floor and you may cause unwanted damage to the floor. Another thing is you kind of want to keep it level to the floor. You're not going to want to do this because you're going to gouge the floor, and it'll be pretty apparent if you do a dark stain. Mike, do you mind just turning that back on for me on the front there?
Yeah, front right, Mike, by the cord.
Now with that system, you would go throughout the whole edge of the floor, and that'll get you about 4 or 5 inches out from the wall. And with the power drive, it'll get you about an inch off the baseboard, so it'll blend in with the polisher, what you did there.
Just want to show you here what we've got for wood fiber. And so what we've removed there is essentially the spring wood or the soft grain. And you can see by wetting it down, we've really helped keep anything from getting airborne, and just keeps the job cleaner. And then that vacuum, that's vacuum assist on it, is really just helping to keep it out of the air. So it looks like it does a nice job. So it's tearing out some wood.
Now with the power drive, this machine is not operated like a regular buffer with the handle back this way. We like to keep the handle up. It keeps it balanced. There is a safety trigger on here, so if you were to try to start it on the upright position, it won't. You have to come back a little ways, and the trigger will disengage, and the machine will run. And this is about the height or the angle that you want this in order to run it. Let's go ahead and start. Yep. One other thing that I wanted to point out, when we run the power drive, it is cutting the heaviest right back here where a lot of the weight is. So what we recommend is the first pass, I like to work right to left, but we kind of started on the left here, so I'm just going to work left to right. You're going to want this at a 45-degree angle to the wood, so you're actually doing an aggressive cut. But once we get to the end, we're going to make a second pass, but we're going to straighten it out so this is parallel to the grain. It kind of helps with minimizing some of the scratch pattern on the floor. So let's get started
You want
here.
to bring it down here? You can start down here.
Yeah, sure. Now I'm going to move the power drive over 6 inches. You don't want to go more than 6 inches on the overpass because then you're going to miss a spot. So with the power drive, move it over 6 inches, go back to your 45-degree angle, make your first cut, come back parallel.
Are the bucks 6 inches?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
at this point, you're going to want to kind of take your hand and get on the floor and just kind of go over it to see if that's the kind of texture that you want, or do you want to get more aggressive. If that's the case, you can go over it one more time. It really depends on the look that you're trying to get after. Once you put a dark stain on here, you're really going to see the dish out that you get and the from the wire brushing. So what we'll do here is we're going to give it a quick vac, and then we're going to use the multi-disc. We're going to take this plate with the gear plate off of the power drive, and we're going to use, our regular multi-disc that doesn't have the gears. It's just driven by the buffer, and we're going to use the black, which is silicon carbide, the 120s. We're going to use 120s on here. We recommend a 120 or a 150, or the diamond discs. You can use an 80 or a 120 diamond disc to get a really fine scratch pattern. Now, with the multi-disc, we're going to run it like a regular buffer. So we're going to go ahead and take this off, and you'll see me bring the handle back down and just run it like a regular buffer. A good rule of thumb too is when you have these is to not to rest the power drive on these brushes, because it can damage the brushes. So you want to store these in a secure place where they're not getting a lot of pressure.
What gloves are you getting?
That's all right. Yeah, it's coming apart.
Okay.
And I'm going to show you. I got to take these pucks off anyway, so I'll show you how to get in there. And see, they're a lot more tighter now than they were when I was showing you earlier on how to get them off. Just take them off. This is what the gloves are for, to grab a hold of these things.
They are sharp. Keeping the same dust shield on?
Yeah, we can keep that.
So look at the amount of product coming out of there. I mean, that's a lot of wood fiber.
I really think that water popping really helps get the job done quicker and more uniformed. Without them, I think you're going to work a lot harder. You may not get the texture, but you can regulate that water popping just by slowing up the process. I'm sorry, making the process faster as far as your passes.
And we are going to stain this with Bona's Dry Fast cocoa stain, just so you can see the difference. Hopefully it'll pop, and we'll see the difference between the wire brushed area back here that will screen with the flexi sand and the wire brushed material here. Yep.
this going.
You use the same Shroud?
Yeah, we'll just
Okay.
yeah, the same one. Put that on as a regular plate.
Yeah, just so you take notice, back here, Tony's been driving this 220 volt unit with this Bona Power Station Plus. And we have exceptional power here in the repair shop, and you're not going to have that out in the field. So, if you're running long stretches of cable, you're in old sections of different cities where the power supply is low, the Bona Power Station Plus would be a must. It gives you the voltage that's coming in, and then you can boost it as needed. So run 110 off. It'll draw 110 off of your 220 input, so you can run your edgers and buffers. So a good unit.
Yep. So now we're going to put a Tampico brush on. I feel like this is a very critical step too, because since we've dished out and wire brushed the floor, you got some deep crevices within the soft grain. It's really well, I find it very beneficial to run this brush over top to get and loosen some of that wood dust that you would get in those crevices. Okay.
If there's not one in the washroom, don't worry about it.
viewer from Instagram tuning in from Brazil.
Yeah.
They say cheers from Brazil.
Cheers, Brazil. This wire brushing system does a really nice job when you're trying to do a ceruse type of effect with penetrating oil like the Bona craft oil. Put one color down, you have all that soft grain that's very absorbent. Let your first coat, that dark base coat dry. Come back after the proper drying time and come back with like a frost or maybe an ash to really give it that weathered, that ceruse look.
So, and that step that Tony was talking about earlier on the Tampico brush, I think it's an often overlooked step, but particularly when you're doing this kind of facing surface treatment effect, you're about to stain the floor. You may be putting reactives on the floor. You may be buffing in oils that have, and to get all of that material that we just buffed out, it's a really critical step, and it's something that they used to do way back in the day when they were shellacking floors, and it's good to see that it's back because it is an important step to get that fine dust out and give you the best, most even stain you could possibly get. Now we have two different species here. We have red oak, and we have white oak. So I'm just going to stick it real quick. I just have a Delmhurst moisture meter here. I'll just dial in the species and get the temps right. And we're a little wet up here. Come on, baby. 32. Degrees. So we're at 8%, and that floor was probably 7.5 when we stuck it earlier. So I'm gonna go ahead and stain it. I mean, we have to stain it because that's part of this video. So, so we're just gonna go ahead and stain her. We do have the dry fin stain from Bona. It's a cocoa color. I did mix it earlier, so we should be good. I need too much. So, maybe more than that, but what we'll try and do is do a section here. Maybe come all the way up so we can see non-wire brushed, wire brushed, white oak, wire brushed, red oak, and then we'll see what the edge treatments look like.
Okay.
All right.
Wow, that really makes it pop. Now, when you're putting it on, you can actually see where you really got to get in there pretty good because the grain is so...
Like if I just come across, this is
Yep.
great illustration of, you see, I didn't pour finish or stain here. You can see how deep the wire brushing effect is. Now, if you wanted to do two-tone flooring, that kind of thing, this is where it happens. So you can see the amount of dish out there. It's pretty substantial. And if you look up here, and I'm using the same pressure on my hand, you're just gonna have to trust me on that. But see that board with the wire brushing versus what I just did? Hopefully the light hits it, but you could just see it. This is the dish out. And a wire brushed factory floor, that's what it looks like. It's outstanding.
That's amazing.
So I'm just gonna highlight that and leave it go so you can see it. We'll bring it out to the edge where he did some grinder work. And it's still out there. So
We have a question.
Yep.
Could you use a European trowel to spread it?
Yeah, that's a great question. When you have this type of unevenness on the floor, you're going to find that you're probably going to use way too much material with troweling it. If you're comfortable with troweling, that's fine. I would recommend more of a buffing in or rag and wipe off, just because you don't want so much solvents on the floor, so much stain on the floor that it puddles. I just find it with troweling, you kind of leave a lot on the floor, and you're probably going to use a lot more too. So I would rather just buff it or rag it on and rag off.
Yeah, I would probably prefer buffing it in and pouring stain on the pad and buffing it in. It's going to help you get it in a little bit, but again, a lot of this depends on the look that you're looking for. I'm sure there's going to be techniques out there where somebody may pre-stain the floor, wire brush it off, and then restain it. You'll have wood exposed, so there's all kinds of things you can try and practice with this kind of a system, but just to see what the equipment's going to do for you, where the amount of material that was taken out or dished out in the soft grain and the summer wood, that's a lot of material.
It is. And that brings up a good question, because sometimes we get that question, well, I wire brush the floor, now the life of the floor is ruined. If you want to get it out, you got nothing left. Well, it looks like a lot, but it takes the equivalence of about a 1.5 to 2 sandings off the floor, the life of the floor. So just keep that in mind. So if you wanted to get this out, you'd probably have to hit it at an angle or a 7-degree angle, go straight. You probably have to sand it you have to do pretty aggressive sanding to get it flat.
Right.
We have another question. The brush you used prior to staining, that was a Tampico brush?
Tampico.
Yes.
Tampico. And that's really just the style of bristle.
That brush works really well just on a regular sand and finish also. It does a great job when you're using like a waterborne type of finish, even with oil. Sometimes when you get that rough texture, that grain raise, a lot of that's due to some leftover dust from sanding that's in the grain that you didn't get out from vacuuming or tacking. And that does a really nice job getting that fine dust out of those cracks.
No doubt. Does anybody have any questions? We'll start wrapping it up here. Did you want to do anything else?
No, I think hopefully you guys
So
out
you
there
can
can
see, essentially a screened or finished floor here, normal. You can see wire brushed white oak that we really rubbed it in. You can still see some exposed wood fiber in the soft grain here. And then as we get into the red oak, you can see we just left a little bit more stain out. So you can see how much material was removed. Obviously we would push the stain in and rub it in. But the effect that you get, it's wire brushed. There's no doubt about it.
This effect also, before we wrap it up, a lot of it's depending on the species of the wood too. If you have a maple or a walnut, you don't have as much soft grain. We call spring wood the softest part of the oak. It also works really well on ash. So with maple, Brazilian cherry, and walnut, maybe it's not the thing that you want to do. So hopefully that'll be a helpful tip for you guys out there.
You got it. So just to wrap it up, this is the Bona wire brush kit for their power drive unit, which is a 220 unit. We vacked it afterwards. We pre-sanded it like we normally would. We didn't do that on video just to cut the time short. And then did the wire brushing. We did Tampico brushing afterwards. Flexi sand, and then the Tampico brushing afterwards. And then the stain, to show you the effect. And again, that's the cocoa stain from Bona. So if you see any of this product, when we move this over to YouTube, you will be able to see what the link looks like for the wire brush kit from Bona. And don't forget, any of local people or anywhere, we'll have our nailer day, March 15th. March 15th is nailer day, fastest nailer in the West. And The reigning champ is coming, so if anybody wants to come to unseat him, show up. Bring your knee pads because he's fast. And you got anything, Mike?
Yeah, and it's a great open house. It's a
Yep.
good time to meet the industry. Our vendors will be here, so we combined, an open house function with our vendors, and you get a chance to, visit with the industry as well as see guys that are very good at what they do and how fast somebody can lay 2 1/4 red oak strip floor. So it's a fun event and a good chance to socialize with the industry pros. And we look forward to seeing you on Nailer Day, which is 2 weeks from Thursday here, March 15th. Also, we're doing an NWFA training, an intermediate sand and finish school will be held here, and that'll be April 24th, 5th, and 6th, with the certification testing on Friday the 27th. So that's April 24th, 5th, and 6th with the intermediate sand and finish training, and then the certification test for intermediate sand and finish credentialing is on Friday the 27th. So thank you, and
Yeah, if you have any ideas for future Facebook Live events, let us know. You can drop them in the comments below, and we're certainly on the YouTube channel. So thanks for watching.